Sunday, which means we're doing Brunches and Dragons. Gotta make sure I'm not muted. I'm not Miracle of Miracles. Gotta make sure Dr. B's not muted. He's not Miracle of Miracles. So this morning, I am joined here by the Dr. B. We are going to be playing through Ziggy, I believe is the character's name. Now, you might know Dr. B from, we're at PAX right now, so you might know Dr. B from some of the AFK stuff. Take this. He's great. He's going to introduce himself in a minute. I met Dr. B at a different convention. I waved at him very, very terrifiedly from across a hallway. He was like, "Wait, me? Okay." He put his usual face on. He comes over, and I was like, "No, I know. You don't have to do that." And we sort of were like weird at each other for a couple of minutes. And that was the beginning of this really interesting, funny friendship we've got. So thank you for joining me this morning. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, sir?
Well, I mean, how can I do better than that? That was such a fantastic introduction. But yeah, when when we met, this was day 3 of TwitchCon, and I believe
Yes.
it was TwitchCon 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the one in San Jose.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they. And this was the end, and I'd been doing a bunch of speaking, and I was in Dr. B mode,
Yep.
and when I was leaving, I had that third day sort of, oh God, I'm done vibe going on. And
Yeah.
I saw somebody waving, and eventually as I shuffled my way towards the waving, I realized they were waving at me. And then suddenly, hi, I'm Dr. B again. And da da
Yeah.
da da da. And when when you said, I know you're autistic, you don't have to do that, it was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm
Yep.
fried.
Yep.
It's been 3 days. I'm done.
Yeah. I think I said something like, "Yeah, I don't know how you're doing this. This is amazing." It was the first time I'd seen autistic speak on like as a professional, and I'd been considering coming out myself professionally and about that and speaking about that. So it was a neat thing to see. Oh, hi, Zeitgeist. What's for brunch? Well, I
Guys,
believe we are going to serve up the souls of the damned, spiced with a little bit of dragon turtle salt that I've got coming in from, one of the Azinlia lands. We've got Coyote as well. Hello. We've got Luthera. Hey,
hello. Oh,
Luth. What's
so many
up?
good friends
We've
here.
got a bunch of spoons. Hello.
Hello. And we're going to be washing it down with highball
Yep.
caffeinated water.
Hashtag not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. In limited edition, watermelon mint.
Ooh, that sounds good. I might have to try that.
It's a summer flavor.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Anything else you would like to introduce yourself with, sir?
Well, I am the clinical director of Take This. We were the first mental health nonprofit to serve the game community, and we've been doing that since 2012. We're currently in the midst of PAX Online, the first ever PAX Online, and yay! And we are running the AFK Online, the very deliberately, ironically named AFK Online.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw that. I wondered if
oh
you were
no,
going to
that
name it something else, and I like that you're just like,
no,
nope, we're going to do FK Online. It's just going to be that.
no. I loved the irony of that so much, and I was AFK online. Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. So yeah, we're running it. It's a 24-hour a day, 9-day AFK virtual AFK room on Take This as Discord server, staffed by over 100 international volunteers,
Yikes.
54 shifts, and it's amazing how it's come together. So, make sure to head on over to Take This as Discord and check that out, especially if you're attending PAX Online.
It's really good. I was having a stressed out moment. I popped in there and I had to run away again, but I am definitely going to land in there and do some coloring because it's one of the things I miss actually from PAX, and you'd think I wouldn't miss a thing that I need to get away from PAX because I'm not at PAX, but I miss it. I really liked those rooms. They were so comforting, and I could just go in there and sit on one of those little bean bags and play with my Switch or whatever and
Yeah.
color, and no one was mean to me. And if I started crying, somebody would be like, "You good?" And when I said yes, they'd go away. Nobody tried to touch me. It was awesome. Love that
No,
place.
I will say that the AFK rooms have become a necessity for a lot of convention attendees. Um, we have been told this over and over and over again that it's an essential part of their PAX experience. And we're real thrilled to be back offering that to the first ever PAX online. And we've talked for years about trying to do this in sort of an online format, but necessity being and desperation being the mother of inventions. We're doing it now.
It's really good. I really like how you've done it too, because I saw a lot of people struggling with how to do online convention, and Game to Grow's got a Discord as well, and I was like, how do I make a virtual table? How can people land in a place and ask questions? How can we provide community and things?
Mm-hmm.
And I took a lot of inspiration from Take This actually, and so I'm hoping we'll yeah, I'm hoping our communities will have a good time. It's only day 2, so we'll see. 9
Oh yeah,
days.
no, it's the marathon, 9 days. But I got to give a shout out to both our AFK program manager Elizabeth Flanagan and our amazing community manager Dr. Kelly Dunlap.
Yeah.
The AFK online would not have happened without them.
No, it's very
It's
clear.
really them.
Yeah.
It's really them who are making this happen.
Yeah. They're doing a
Yeah.
great job. Yeah. I appreciate those humans quite a bit. They're doing a great job.
So do I.
Yeah,
Oh
and I
God,
miss seeing everybody though. It's kind of tough. I actually I scheduled you to do this without realizing it was PAX week, but it's kind of perfect. Yeah, I completely spaced. I was like, we'll do it on November 13th. It'll be fine, or whatever month this is. And we get up to it, and I'm looking at my calendar, and Luth goes, "Wait, are you doing Dr. B this weekend for brunches?" And I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "It's PAX though," and I was like, "It is PAX though." Yep, it's Pat. Here we go. Yeah. So anyway, okay. Anything else you'd like to add to your introduction, or you want to go ahead and introduce us to Ziggy?
talk Ziggy.
Yeah. Tell me about
Yeah.
this person.
Well, Ziggy found himself. Actually, he didn't find himself. Others found him. He is an high elf baby abandoned in a human settlement on the edges of civilization.
Perfect.
And as Ziggy grew up, the only elf child in this remote human village, they filled with filled with folklore and just not being exposed to really much of anything outside of their extremely small hamlet, they assumed he was destined for greatness. And were not shy about telling him that when
Oh,
all
good.
he wanted to do was brew beer. He just
Perfect.
wanted to lead a quiet life. But yet he was destined for greatness, they said, for he was the blessed child left upon their doorstep. And they never let him forget that.
Did he resent that, or did he sort of like, okay, can I do that and then come brew beer? Like, what was?
There's kind of a quiet resignation of this again.
Okay, yep. So resignation. Does he dream of setting up a brewery in this hamlet, or like moving away from the greatness talk and doing it somewhere else? Is he
Uh
tied to his family,
so
or?
I think he need, well, in order to get the good distribution for the kind of ales he wants to brew, you got
Uh-huh.
to go to where the customers are.
It's true. Yep.
Now that being said, if he can send money home to the town to really boost the town up, then he's all about that.
So his travel is more to investigate ingredients and like find the right markets for the beer, like to brew the best beer. If he were to go on a quest, it wouldn't be about a quest for money or a quest to save anybody. It'd be a quest to find the best beer.
I mean, yeah, he's very investigative about his culinary interests, but his dream is a quiet one to have a gastropub. It's a term he invented.
Did he now?
He
How
did.
how did he come up with this term?
Well, he came up with this term by reading the 3 books in the local library It's a very small town.
There were three
He wrote
entire books?
3 entire
It's
books,
impressive.
one on recipes. It had small sections for each things, and yeah, that was the one he was drawn to the most.
Yeah.
And the term gastronomy
Mm-hmm.
stuck out because it had a handwritten note in the side, not the study of stars. Okay,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
somebody had to clarify that gastronomy was not the study of stars, and when he realized that it was the study of food
Mm-hmm.
instead, he thought, hey, I could combine that with a pub,
Right.
gastropub.
So good food and good beer, not just good beer.
And it also sounds like stars, gastropub.
Right. So he's really into the stars then.
Well, yeah, I mean, Star Child, they called him. They
Okay.
really they built his reputation up a lot when really he just, again, he wanted to cook and brew.
Was he particularly good at anything? Like when they were building up like when they were telling him he was meant for great things, was it the kind of thing where he'd be really good at something and they'd be like, "Oh, you are meant for great things," or is it the kind of thing where he'd not be good at something and they'd be like, "Oh, come on, you're meant for great things. Like try harder."
Well, they collectively pooled their resources to get him the best combat training
Okay.
because he was going to be a great hero of their village.
Yep. Was it
So
a
he turned out to be a pretty decent fighter.
Yep. So even though it wasn't his passion, he's actually a decent fighter.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and eventually he learned to rationalize that being a decent fighter is not necessarily a bad thing if you're going to own a bar.
Okay. Yep, that's fair. Now, does this town see a lot of fighting?
No.
No.
No. They're a small sheep. They're a shepherd village.
Yeah, if it's on the edge of civilization, would they get attacked by monsters at all?
Not really. Not
No.
really. There's the occasional there's the occasional sort of monster that comes through, but they live fairly in harmony with the surrounding area.
Hmm.
You get your occasional temperature spike or drop, but for the most part, they're fine.
Yeah, it sounds like you'd be one of the villages that would actually sort of be within the territory of the mouse folk that were in my last episode. They
Oh.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I'm hearing some resonancy there. So, all right, so he's got a passion for food. He
Mhm.
really wants to brew beer,
Mhm.
and he's been told he's destined for great things, and he's been trained as a fighter.
Mhm.
We could take this in a couple of different directions. All right, so he's fond of his family. Was he adopted by like an older childless couple, or was he like one of 15? Like one more mouth
Not
to
an
feed is not
older
a big deal.
childless couple, but they he definitely has the two individuals who raised him,
Mm-hmm.
but there really truly was a communal village effort in raising the young star child Ziggy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and where did your training come from? They got him the best combat training. Where did that come from?
They brought in tutors.
All right, so they lured tutors out there and probably by being like, we have the next big hero, right? So,
Maybe.
so you got
Well,
some,
I'm sure they talked him up
yeah,
because
definitely,
they're so proud of Ziggy.
yeah.
And by the way, he goes by Ziggy because his given name of Zigwump was not particularly flattering for he did not like going by Zigwump.
Who gave him that name?
His adoptive
Okay,
parents.
so is it possible that there's a name out there that might resonate more with him, or is like a family name? Like, would it be possible that he might be some long lost prince or something if they keep talking him up?
I mean, it's certainly anything's possible.
Yep. That would be kind of an interesting twist. Okay.
Anything's
Where he's
possible.
where he's like, "Wait, no, I am meant for great things, but I
Ah,
still
no, I just want to brew beer.
just want to brew beer."
Would be that actually really like that idea. Very Captain Carrot from Discworld.
Yep, that would be really good. Yeah. Okay, well, let's think about
He's a
that for a
king.
second.
I just want to make beer.
Yeah. If he's meant for great things and he comes of age, do you think somebody would probably do you think part of the plan is to send you out into the world to seek your fortune, to be
Oh,
great?
definitely.
Yeah, that would be part of it. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And
And
would
bring
there
glory to the village.
right. It would there be a point at all? Is Ziggy the kind of person that's like more practical, or is he more like, yeah, okay, I'll give this a go, or is he more like, okay, I'm going to go along with this so that I can investigate, so I can travel around and learn more about food and beer, and I'll send money back and that'll look like glory.
I think haggardly dutiful would be a good way of putting it. There is a sort of resignation to the destiny
Got it?
that the village has assigned him. But so and he's going along with it cuz he's trying to do best by his family and all the folks who raised him. But he's got his own dreams, and if he can incorporate that somehow, then great.
Ah, I see. Okay. That would be so he's resigned to his fate. He's gonna do what his village wants. But
As best he
if
can.
and he will honestly do the best he can. But if on the way he should find some culinary arts that he can pursue, he's gonna try and do both. Okay.
Oh, yes. Well, you got to have that work-life balance.
You do. Yeah, I'm having some interesting ideas about what I could do with this. And it could tie in a piece of lore that I wanna use. Okay. So let's say I think I've got a good idea of Ziggy. Oh, what's he look like?
Uh okay, so he is actually pretty well built,
Mm-hmm.
muscular in terms of musculature for a high elf.
Mm-hmm.
He is fairly tall, about 6'3",
Mm-hmm.
so like even just a little bit more than my height.
Okay.
Um, he is broad shouldered and not as lithe and dexterous as we would often assume an elf to be.
Mm-hmm.
But he is definitely big and a little intimidating with long chestnut hair, straight chestnut hair pulled into a ponytail, and wearing heavy armor,
Okay.
olive skin from bronze, kind of a bronze. Oh, excuse me, bronze, olive-ish tone to his skin. Looks like he's been raised in the country,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a Mediterranean Sicilian vibe there. Looks like he spent time in the sun.
Okay. All right. So does he have any distinguishing weapons or clothes? Is he wearing a certain style of vest that's um, like common to that area? Does his great axe have a wrapping on the handle that would identify him as the from the north or whatever?
No, his weapon is his armor and his great axe are both expensive for the village from which he came, but fairly common.
Okay. All right. I'm going to propose a scenario, and I want you to
Okay.
tell me whether it sounds like a thing that you would like to do. So I'm thinking Ziggy goes out, he's seeking his fortune, he's a fighter, so he's looking for maybe he's looking for jobs, maybe he's looking for like hero type work.
Hmm.
He's definitely looking to travel because everyone knows you have to travel long distances before you can be a hero. I want to say that he's somewhere, let's say an inn of some kind. There's a particularly nutty beer here that you like, so you're gonna hang out here for a minute or something. Whatever kind of beer that you would like Ziggy to be interested in. It could be nutty or fruity or smoky or whatever. And sorry, smoky's whiskey, but whatever.
No,
And
no, actually, there are smoky beers. There are smoked malts. They're specialized.
mm-hmm,
They're a little hard to find in America, but
mm-hmm.
smoked malt beers do exist.
I did not know that. All right. So smoky beer. I want to say that a tinker is coming in, and there's a ruckus when he comes in, and this tinker is known for tinker, tinker. He is a tinker, and he has a tinker's cart. Whatever. He's very well known for. You hear all of the rumblings of like, oh, he's the guy that if you need cookware, he's gonna have it. He's got like sometimes he's got enchanted stuff. And I think he wants to hire a guard. He's gonna go into some wild unknowns. He's looking for new markets, maybe. He's looking for new ingredients. He's a well-known cook
I just
himself.
thought of his name.
Tell me, he doesn't have a name yet. What should his name
His
be?
name is Lee Crusay.
Okay. Yes, that's absolutely his name. I would spell it Lee and then C or K, do you think?
Well, I think it's a C.
It's just, yep. I didn't know whether we were going to on the nose it or not.
Yeah, no, we're going on the nose. I mean, there's no subtlety here.
All right. So he's got a name. Does that sound like the kind of thing that Ziggy would do? Like, okay, I'm going to be a guard. He's a cook. If I'm going to do this.
Yeah, no, let's go help out Lee Crusay. Oh, we have a suggestion from the chat that his name is with a Q. Crusay. With a Q.
Q. I see. Sorry.
Yes.
Sometimes he typos. So Q.
Yeah.
What is it like? Q.
Apostrophe Rusay.
Oh yeah. And nobody can pronounce it correctly, so it gets bastardized to Crusay. And he's like, no, it's Crusay.
Crusay. Yes, I love this.
Great. So this is the talk you're hearing, is that he's well known for the... Yes, Dr. B does get you, Luth. I'm glad he's hanging out. He doesn't always watch these. Hearts, we all love Luth. No, it's Quase. Yes. Sorry. Thank you, Luth. He's correcting. It's Quase. And people are like, yeah, Crusay. And he's like, no, it's Quit. And that's actually, let's say that's how you hear of him. You're talking to the bartender. He's telling you exactly how he makes this smoky beer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This isn't a taste that
Ooh,
Ziggy's had before. Ziggy's used to apple beer. He's used to very fruity beer. Let's say that's what your town's well known for. Been on an apple kick lately. I want apple juice so badly. Anyway, so the bartender's explaining to you how he gets this smoky. There's a smoked meat place next door, and you guys discovered this by accident, and it gets into the barrels that he brews the beer in, and he's explaining all this, and you hear a crowd approaching, and this usually happens on market day, and this isn't market day. You've been here for about a week, and you hear a crowd approaching, and they sort of flood into this we'll call it an inn, whenever it's market day around noon, and you hear somebody yelling, no, it's Quase, not Crusay, Quase, get it right. And somebody goes, yes, Crusay, of course, sir. Please come in this way. I would love to see you. And he's like, Quase, forget it. Whatever. What do you want to see? Spoons? Knives? What? I've got knives. And he sounds very, like, frustrated. So on this swell of humanoids, humanity, they come in and they all settle themselves, and the bartenders, keepers, or helpers start setting everybody up and collecting pennies and making sure the fire's hot on the stew and things. And so all that's going on. And the gentleman who's very put upon extracts himself from the crowd and comes to the bar and sits down next to you, muttering, how hard is it? And you hear him tell, as he's extracting himself, like, I have to eat lunch or I'll eat you. So you all leave me alone for an hour, and then I'll open the cart. So he sits down next to you and orders a beer. And the bartender seems to know him. He's like, Lee, it's good to see you. You want your usual? And Lee's like, yes, for God's sake. And he says, okay, Mr. Q. And he goes off and muttering, Mr. Q, my name's Chris. I travel the world. This nonsense. And but he settles right down. He seems to mellow out significantly when he's got his stew and a little bit of beer in him. Any interactions you want to have at this moment? You think?
I turn to him, give him a good nod, and say, "Good beer."
And he looks at you and he's mellowed at this point and he says, I actually stop in this town for this beer. You won't find beer quite like this. Has he told you the story of it? It's quite
He has.
remarkable.
He has.
And
And
can you believe a
what do you do?
place like this? Oh, me, sir, of course. My name is Lee Quisse. I am a tinker of sorts. Failed magician, you might say. I am I am on a hunt, a quest, if you will, to find the perfect meal. And so, to pay my way, I enchant things like knives that won't go dull, or pans that keep an even heat, or the culinary magic. As for some reason, it doesn't quite work on weapons or anything. And he chuckles, and he says, "That pays my way, but I really am looking for the most interesting ingredients. I'm a bit of a cook. What do you
Could
do?"
say.
Yes, I'm actually quite well known. And the bartender scoots up at this point and he says, "Yes, actually, Lee designed this stew." And Lee goes, "I didn't design the stew. I made the recipe for it." And the bartender, yeah, what he said. Yep, here you go. And he gives him more stew, and Lee mellows out a little more. You notice the crowd is mellowed out quite a bit too. Like the excitement is sort of turned into a contentness.
Okay. Well, I turn and shake his hand with the big monkey paw that is my hand, because being a big, big burly fighter.
Yep.
And I say to him, "Well, I would love to accompany you on your journey if I might. I've left my village with the intention of actually perfecting my own culinary cuisine, my own culinary skills."
He looks you up and down and he says, "You look more like a fighter to me."
There's a story there. My parents and the rest of the village swore I was destined for greatness, but really, I just want to make good beer.
He says, it might, but can you use that thing? And he points at you have a great axe, right?
Oh yes.
He points at it. He goes, "But can you use that thing?"
Um, well, in principle, it's not that difficult. The sharp end goes into the person you want to not move anymore.
That's true. Yes. And he seems to be thinking, and he says, "It might be nice to have a guard along that knows a thing or two about good food, as opposed to some of those blockheads who just want to eat beans." Beans. Ugh. Beans. And the bartender, seeing our rant coming on, says, "Lee, you want some more beer? This is a new batch. Just popped the..." And Lee gets distracted by the beer. The bartender,
Well,
okay.
I'm a little Ziggy's there a little perplexed, because one of the three dishes in the gastronomy book back at home was a very specialized and excellent slow cooked bean.
Oh, really? Is he
Oh
going to
yes.
mention this to Lee at all?
Oh, he is definitely going to mention this to Mr. Lee Quisse.
Quisse.
That
Yeah.
my village was known for a slow cooked bean dish that was really quite excellent.
The bartender gives you a dirty look. Like, I just... Now, and Lee turns to you and he immediately starts ranting about beans. And the bartender's like, "Do you see what you've done?" He's like, "Beans in a pot over a fire, there's no elegance there. There's nothing to tempt the palate. There's no delicacy. There's no force. There's no boldness." And he goes on and on for a while. And the bartender keeps like trying to nudge the stew into his elbow so he'll eat some more and calm down. But Lee seems to be expounding on the idea of cans of bean dumped into a pot over a fire until they're warm. You shovel them into your maw, and that's it. There's no subtlety there. There's no craft.
Ziggy slowly reaches for his axe and brings it down in front of him and just starts polishing it a little bit menacingly in the direction of Lee.
Lee does not notice this. I think the way he ends his rant is he says, "Now you tell me about this recipe, because if it involves a can of beans and a fork, we're going to have a discussion. So what's it so special about this recipe?" He's basically like, "Prove to me."
There's a unique root that grows near my village. Unlike anything you've ever tried. It transports terribly, goes bad within 2 days after picking it from the ground. But the flavor is akin to, I'm told, never had it, but ginger, as well as star anise, something between those. And when you slow cook this variety of beans that is native to my village, but they have kind of a black spot on them, on top of the white part of the bean. It creates a very comforting feel to it.
As soon as you mention ginger and anise, and he gets very interested, because you're not talking about a can of beans over a fire. Slow cooking, that's amazing. So he gets very interested. He starts asking you a million questions. What time of year do you dig up the ginger? What kind of anise do you have? Is it the black as night kind? Is it more blue?
Well, it's not ginger. It's a unique root that only exists near my village that I'm told tastes like ginger. I've never had ginger.
So then he asks you, like, okay, well, what's the difference between this root and a ginger root? Does it look the same? Why is it ginger like? Is it just the taste? Is it like a different color? Like, where do you live? Where's your village? He's gonna start interrogating you about this, and y'all can probably talk about it for a good hour. Yeah.
Just kind of polishing my great axe.
He's super excited about this dish. He pulls out a notebook and he starts scribbling in it. And he wants to try it. If the root is ginger like, but he can't get his hands on the root. He's also very interested in that. He's gonna have to swing by there someday. It's behind him, so he won't be able to go back. But someday he flips to a page, and there's clearly a list of ingredients with towns next to it of like places he needs to go back to. But he's already muttering about a dish he could make that's at least similar, and he needs you to come with him because he thinks it'll take him a couple of days to perfect, and he can't stay here for that long, and he'll need you so you can tell him what it's like.
Well, I'm happy to chat more and more about this, but can I accompany you on your journey for a while?
Well,
It sounds like I have a lot to learn from you.
Lee says, well, if you'll have to. I have to perfect this dish, and I need somebody. And he sort of like waves. He's like you. He like waves, gestures at all of you, including the great axe. And I think he'll probably reach out a finger and just put it on one of the points and be like, "Oh, that's sharp. Yes, you clearly know what you're doing." So he
Sharp knives, sharp axe.
we'll go great together. So he gets pulled away by the customers, and so he goes out into the yard of the inn, and he's got a neat little cart. He folds down the side into what ends up being like a table, and it's got goods on it, and behind it is a wall, sort of set into the cart with goods, and he starts taking orders from people. It actually opens the side of the cart. Actually, half of it folds down and half of it folds up, and there are pots and pans hanging from the top part, and there are goods on the part that folds down, and then also goods on the back. So it's a neat little setup. He starts taking orders. Luth says, "Is this a food truck?" I'm not done. So he starts taking orders of he starts pulling out knives and trading knives with people. And every now and then he goes to a drawer underneath, and you hear him mutter something. A little boy comes up with a coin, and you hear Lee say, "Now you know this doesn't work. We've got to trade knives. You can't sell knives. That's bad luck." And the little boy says, "Right, yes," and runs off. And he comes back with a very bendy, terrible knife. And Lee sort of shakes his head, takes the terrible knife with the coin, and hands over a good one. You notice the ones he's handing over from the drawer underneath are a little bit shinier. So it seems that he's selling both regular and magical kitchen items. Once that flood of people are done, there's a crowd of people in the back that are sort of waiting. And he says, all right, next. And he goes inside, and the wall that was there flips down. And so it's sort of like sandwiches the goods that were on those two surfaces. And you can see he now has an apron on. And sure enough, in the cart is like a kitchen. And he starts to take orders, and you hear people calling out, "Oh, remember that thing that you made last time? And do you still have those meat pies?" And he spends
They're getting rowdy.
Yeah.
Ziggy just goes up and stands next to Lee and folds his arms
Okay.
and stares at the crowd as they get unruly.
There's a beat of quiet, and Lee looks at you and he says, "That's right. One at a time." And they form a line, and they very politely, they start to be polite. Some louder gentlemen that weren't here for this quiet moment spill out of the inn, and they've clearly had one too many of those smoky beers, and they push their way up through the line to Lee and start loudly ordering some chips. And Lee starts to explain that he doesn't serve chips, and if they would like something, they need to go to the back of the line. And one of them says, "Nah, you get what I order right now." And Lee sort of looks at you.
I step up, and again, arms folded menacingly, staring at this person, belligerent person. He said back of the line.
This guy's going to be like, "Oh, and who are you?"
I'm the person who's telling you, he said back of the line.
Would he have his axe in front of him, do you think?
No, he has the handle is very conspicuously sticking out.
Okay.
It's not subtle.
I think the boy, he's really just a boy, a young man. He looks at you, he looks at the handle, he looks at Lee, who's sort of like grinning like, "This is great. I don't have to do anything." And he mutters and says, "Well, I didn't want this dumb, stupid crusade foreign devil," and walks off into the dust. And the guys with him sort of follow him, but they keep looking back like, "But we wanted a meat pie. Why do you have to ruin it?" The rest of the afternoon is very calm. The customers trickle away. Lee...
We all have that friend.
Wipes his... Yeah, we do. Wipes his brow, and work well done. And he leans over the side of this. So yes, Luth, it's a food truck. Leans over the side of this, and he says, "What was your name, friend?"
Ziggy.
And he says, "Ziggy, I think you and I are going to make a fine team. Come on up here." So the inside of the cart is actually quite clever. There's all these things that fold out of it, and there does end up being 2 bunks in it. So this is something you all can travel in. The seat of the cart and the horse, the 2 horses that pull it, work very well. You're going to travel very comfortably. This guy clearly knows what he makes a dinner for just the 2 of you, and it's quite good. And he says, you can hear him muttering about some of the spices he wants to pick up in this particular town. He tells you tomorrow's a buying day for me. So he sells all the goods, and then he uses the coin he has he says, "I always try and put some of the coin that I make off the village I'm in back into the village. Good feeling. And of course you get some of the most interesting ingredients that way." So he goes out, and this town is quite well known for its smoked meats and its smoked beer. He actually comes back. He looks a little guilty. He's got a small cask of beer, and he says, "Well, this'll be for special occasions." But he also puts in quite a fairly large order of smoked meats, and he tells you the next town that I stop in regularly, 2 days away, these'll turn into meat pies for them. We'll start making them tomorrow. And he starts explaining how he picks up ingredients in each village and then sells different kinds of foods a couple villages down, right? So he gets to work with the food, and he has his regular route, and then sometimes when he has enough coin, he goes off to find something else. He tells you that his destination this time is an old friend of his starting up a new town. It's over on the other. It's up north, near the Kellis Mountains, and it's he says it's a funny place. Somebody said it's on a cliff. I don't know. But this old friend of his, they used to go adventuring together. And you find out that Lee was, when he said he was kind of a failed magician, he means it. He tried the whole adventuring life, but he wasn't good at anything when it came to that. But he was a hell of a cook. So he ended up going around with his friends, and they all sought their fortune, and he kept them well fed. And that was about all he was good for. And you realize that Lee's probably a bit older than he looks, but he said he tells you about how each of them have retired, and this one settled down in this farmland and raised a gaggle of new adventurers, and this one settled in this town to take care of his old mother and became an inventor, and like all you're hearing about all these fellows. You hear about one guy named Archie. He was a bit of an oddball. You hear about I have terrible names.
Jughead.
Sure. Yep. So you hear quite a few names, but you're going to see
Real name Billy.
Billy.
Just goes by Jughead because he distills the best Applejack.
Perfect. Yes. You guys got along great. So the fella that you're going to see who's starting up this town was the leader of this group, and we'll say his name was Manny. Yep. And
He's the Manny.
he always wanted to settle down and start a town, and that was always the Lee and his friends were always kidding him about it. But Manny was always saying he'd start up a town, and he expected all of them to come by and see it and settle down with him if he wanted. He was gonna make sure he settled down in a place on a trade route where people were regularly traveling. It was gonna be highly defensible, all that jazz. So that's where you're headed.
Nice.
Lee's not quite sure of the name of the place yet because it's brand new. He thinks Manny's only been there for a year or two, and he got word last season, and he's slowly making his way. He grumbles about it. He's not going to hurry for anybody. I think on the way...
We call it Manchester.
It actually already has a name. You're going to a place... Yeah, you're going to a place that I named rather quickly in... I think it was the second or third D&D session I ever ran a couple
That's
years
awesome.
ago. Yeah, and so we're gonna lay down some lore, I think, for one of the. Yeah, I think it'll be good. So,
Laying down the lore.
trying to decide whether I want to throw something at you before you get there. I think that'll work. I think what I'll do is have. Do you want a cooking competition or somebody trying to steal Lee's secrets?
Ooh, cooking competition. Cooking competition has a lot of capability of being fun.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as I think Ziggy learned to use his axe in a somewhat delicate manner, use the weight of it to just sort of rock the blades and chop vegetables and herbs in the process.
Yep.
But
might be able to combine both, actually. I think I can combine both.
Okay.
All right. So we're about an hour into this, and I need to take a quick break. I gotta let the dog out for a second.
Okie dokie.
Is a 10-minute break all right for you?
10-minute break is wonderful.
Okay, so let me just pull up my... I have my be right back already ready. All right, stream. We're going to be back in about 10 minutes, so that'll be 30 minutes after the hour. And we'll see you right here. Must unmute. There we go. Everybody's unmuted. Hello, Stream. We're back. All right. We're going to pick up. Let's see. Can I hear Dr. B? Did I lose Dr. B's audio?
So.
Oh, no, I can hear you. Okay, sorry.
Good.
I was like, come on. I always have tech difficulties on Sundays for some reason. It's the worst. All right. We're going to pick back up with Lee Kwase and Ziggy. You have been traveling together for, we'll say, 2 weeks, so you guys know each other fairly well. You've noticed, you actually noticed somebody sort of haunting the edges of the crowds and never approaching the cart. You noticed that 2 towns ago. Then, when you told Lee about it, he picked up on it. That same night when you and Lee were trying a pie somewhere, when you got back, it looked like somebody tried to break in to the cart. So you've been picking up on signs of somebody is trying to get something out of Lee's cart. He's talked to you. He says, "I don't have anything that's that special." He says, he tells you, he shows you how he enchants the gear he uses, and he tends to, and he's got his old cooking gear that he never sells, and that clearly has some sort of, you don't know whether it's magic or he just seasons that pan really well, but there's something there with his stuff. But it's about the oldest looking equipment you've ever seen. It works, right? But that's not something he'd sell. That seems to be imbued with Lee's brilliance, but that's not something you sell. But that wouldn't be worth it really to a thief of any kind. And Lee's got his books. He's got books and books and books of recipes. He's got recipes.
Devouring them.
Yeah. He's got recipes you've never seen. He's been to countries you've never heard of. You're pretty sure this book, which has a weird shiny cover, is from a completely different world. Like, he's got all kinds of stuff in there. So maybe, but it's all food stuff. And like you and Lee are kindred spirits, but it's a rare thing. Like, you're not, in some of these towns, you're finding some good wives and stuff that have particularly good jams and old family secrets that Lee manages to wheedle out of them. But other than that, there isn't really a call for this. He makes a good living selling sharp knives that'll last for years or so. But it's nothing special. Right? It's not like enchanting a sword or anything. The charms wear off after a while. The sugar doesn't go bad. That kind of stuff. But it's nothing special. So you're not quite sure.
Practical.
Very practical. But that's the thing, is it's practical magic. And it's good wifery magic. It's husbandry magic. It's not, well, not even husbandry. It's kitchen magic, really. And it's good kitchen magic. He's very good at what he does. So neither of you are quite sure what he's getting at. And Lee actually, how about this? I think Lee would have you and him pull over in a clearing and just take the cart apart and see if somebody stuck something in the cart that, like, to try and get Lee to transport it for them. And you don't find anything. About the only thing you find in this cart that is particularly strange is Lee has an entire drawer full of spoons. And none of them are the same. Some of them are carved wood. Some of them are metal. Some of them are shiny. That one looks like it's made out of a rock. That one looks like it's made out of a twig. That one looks like it's made out of grass, but it's hard enough to use as a spoon. And every now and then, Lee will open the drawer, rummage around, pull out a spoon to scoop a certain spice into the pan, and then he'll lick it and put it back in the drawer. But he never sells those spoons. And every now and then you see him whittling at a spoon, and you can tell he's magicking it the same way that he magics other stuff, but he usually makes a face and chucks it into the drawer. He never sells these spoons. Every now and then someone will trade old kitchen stuff for new kitchen stuff. He does trades quite a bit. And you notice he's always particularly interested in spoons. And whenever he gets a particularly interesting looking spoon, he'll chuck it in that drawer and you'll see him working with it. You can tell he's magicking it because he's not secret about it. But you don't know what he does with those spoons. So you're rolling up to a new town. And when you're going through the whole cart, when you're taking it apart, he takes that drawer out and he dumps it into the clearing, and he's sorting through them, and he's like, not even, these are all failures. I don't know why they'd want these either. None of them are particularly powerful. And he holds them up and he's like, they're all failed experiments. And then he starts chucking them back in the drawer. So you don't find anything that would particularly be stealable.
Lee, what's with the spoons?
Lee looks guilty and he says, Ziggy, my boy, you're not to make fun of me, understand. But my father was a great magician. He was one of the most powerful wizards this world's ever seen. He's been to other worlds. And he despaired.
The shiny cookbook?
He did, well, do you ask him?
And that's what I simply say, the shiny cookbook.
And he says, yeah, he brought that back one time. And honestly, that's what got me interested in cooking. Is I've some of my earliest experiments with cooking come from that book, and you could see some of the ingredients in there, like Lord only knows. But those notes in the margin, you notice that aren't my handwriting. That's somebody that's like tried to have substitutions. I think it might be my father's. He died when I was quite young, but he always despaired of me because I was always into cooking instead of, wizardry. And I went out adventuring to try and improve my skills, and I just never did. I was never good at the charms. I'm only good at practical stuff or oddball stuff. So he holds up a spoon and he says, take this spoon, for example. If you use this spoon to take a dried spice and put it into the pan, it's fresh as fresh. Nobody wants this. Chucks it in the drawer.
That's useful.
He says, to you and me it is, but no one else.
Chucks to any innkeeper.
And he says, no, because the innkeepers don't want that fresh taste. They want the dry. And he starts to go into some complicated explanation. And Ziggy, you can tell at this point that he was told so often when he was younger that he was a failed magician, that you're right, that is a super useful spoon. But Lee refuses, so he chucks it into the drawer.
IRL Dr. B wants that spoon.
Yeah, right? No. He holds up another one, and he goes, this spoon, you put it in your mouth. And he hands it to you, and he says, put it in your mouth. And
tries to fit the whole spoon in the mouth.
No, so you put the bowl of the spoon in your mouth, and you realize it is a spoonful of whiskey.
Dr. B really wants this.
And he says, that's a useless spoon. And he chucks it in the drawer. He rummages around and he says, this one. And he hands it to you. And he says,
I'm just going to say already, Lee Quisset is my favorite NPC. I want to be friends with Lee Quisset.
Yeah, I've been working on him for a while. He's been sitting in the back of my mind. I didn't know quite what he was going to do and what he was going to look like. Luth says this is what she does. Yeah, I'm really happy with this guy. So he holds up spoon after spoon after spoon, and some of them are a bit strange. He holds up this one and he says, this one just makes walking easier. And he chucks it into a drawer. He holds up another one and he says, this one's actually a knife. Doesn't look like a knife. It looks like a spoon, right? But it's a knife. One of my sharp spells went wrong. And he chucks it into a drawer. He holds up.
You played knifey spoony before.
He just and there's Ziggy, there's hundreds of spoons in this drawer. Some of them are tiny. Bunches of them are wood. He said, I've tried all kinds of materials. I love the old spoons people will give me. They hold spells better, but I can never get it to land the spell I want. He says, this one will only be a hot spoon, but only when it's in a specific kind of tea. He chucks it into the drawer. He's so frustrated with these spoons. He holds up another one. What?
He's the spoonomancer.
Yeah, yep. I've been.
Or a gastromancer?
I don't know. The reason I wanted to work this in today is because for my birthday, I didn't want to run the regular sessions. And so I got two of my long-lasting campaigns to let me run them through a bullshit session where they needed to get a shining thing for the mistress. And as a reward, they all got magic spoons. And so I have a giant spreadsheet full of spoons that do a bunch of weird things. And Luth's character in Treasure Tuesday has that whiskey spoon.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So I was like, they have to come from somewhere. And I was like, it's going to be some sort of tinker. And I hadn't quite figured out what I was going to do with them. But this is, I think this is going to work.
So a little bit of a IRL digression. Are you familiar with the Soundgarden song Spoon Man?
No.
Okay, well they won a Grammy for it, but the real life Spoon Man, his name's Artis, like artist, but without the T. He's a Seattle fixture, and over the years I've known him, and he when he would perform, he has a bandolier, essentially a roll out, almost bandolier of spoons that he would pick for the right tune. And you would see this in the music video
I'm
for
going to look
Spoon
it up.
Man.
Yeah.
But artist is a cool guy.
Yeah.
But this is almost reminding me of this, that Lee Kwasay has like this rollout mat of spoons for various things that only he really knows how to use.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think I want to use this NPC in some other sessions. I think I'm going to recruit some people to bring back some of the NPCs I particularly like, but I'm liking Lee quite a bit. I just wanted there to be a reason to have spoons. I was trying to I just wanted to give all of my players magic items because I just thought it would be fun. And it was the day of, and I was freaking out. And a friend of mine, who Elizabeth, Kilmer, was like, "Oh, use spoons," and I was like, "Duh." And so and another
A
friend
little
of
on
mine,
brand for you.
yeah, another friend of mine was like, "These are not balanced," and I was like, "I know," and he was like, "It's terrible," and I was like, "I know, buddy. Here's a
I love it.
spoon that makes you sassy," and he was like, "I hate it," and I was like, "Here's a spoon that lets you talk to dogs," and he was like, "Oh my god." Because I made the first 7 that I made were all things for me. So there's one that reduces. So if you're holding it, you're not affected by difficult terrain, because I'm a wheelchair user and stairs are bullshit. Whiskey spoon obviously is me. There's another one that lets you cast vicious mockery or whatever because I'm sassy as hell. There's one that lets
I
you talk
love
to
this
dogs.
so much.
Yeah. So the first 7 are all Shauna-isms or spoonisms, and they were a hell of a lot of fun to make. One of them casts purple fireballs, and to recharge it, it's got amethysts in the handle. And when you cast it, the amethyst goes dim, and to recharge it, you have to stir it in tea for up to 10 minutes. And it only recharges one of the jewels.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, all right. So he tells you he's despairing, and he says there's nothing here that anyone would want to steal. And you have to admit, while these spoons are very useful, they're useful in the way that his cookery stuff is. I don't think
I would
Ziggy.
want to steal several of these.
Yeah, but nobody would haunt you from town to town, right? Like he's got equipment in the cart that he sells that is, I mean, it's not as creative as this, but it's just as good, right? Like he sells this little stick that you can put into a bag of sugar and the sugar never gets hard. Right? And it's just a stick that he sells. He's got
That's awesome.
a spatula that if you use it, nothing sticks to the pan. Right? And these are common things he sells, right? The spoons are all what he considers failures. He's got some spoons that keep the water hot. You stick that spoon in the water and it immediately boils, right? Like these are he sells those kinds of things all the time. So this drawer of spoons is not something he thinks anybody would want to like follow along behind the cart. But do you think Ziggy would say this is what they're looking for?
I don't know. Ziggy has not been out of his town, his little village much.
Mm-hmm.
He's a bit naive to the ways of the world, short of what his battle tutors have taught him.
So do you think he would, if Lee was like, these are failures and no
These are
one.
the most amazing things Ziggy has ever seen.
Okay. But do you think if Lee was like, look at what I sell, like that pot that will never rust is way more valuable than this spoon?
All of these things in the cart, these are the most valuable and amazing things Ziggy has ever seen in life. And he knows for sure that these are the world's greatest treasures and they must be protected.
Got it. Okay, I think I see where you're coming from here.
This is amazing.
Lee gets kind of exasperated with you because he's like, it's just cooking stuff.
No, these are amazing. Look, how many people could this spoon alone feed? How much
the charm, it wears off after a year or two. These are basic kitchen charms.
Of boiling water?
It just makes the water boil faster. That's all.
2 years of more people you can feed?
You're not feeding more people. You're just making the water boil faster.
Right, so you can cook faster and feed more people.
Oh my God. He's exasperated. Spoon thinks this is funny, but Lee's like, and he starts grumbling. Lee will get into these moods. Well, he won't hear, like, you've had these discussions over recipes where you might make a suggestion, let's say, and he's like, absolutely not, blasphemy. And you're like, no, but seriously. And he'll get into these moods where he grumbles and he throws things. Nothing scary or anything. He just sort of like sets the spoon drawer down firmly and shoves it in. But he does admit when he's wrong, though. Like, if he's like, fine, I'll do it then. And he does it, and he's like, oh, that's amazing. And he scribbles it in his book, and he puts a little note he puts a Z next to every suggestion you make so that he knows where it came from, right? Because, credit where credit's due. And he's got other recipes with other symbols and things, and he'll refer back to whoever told him what it was. He's got a great pie recipe by, her name is Mama Duke, and she makes the best. He doesn't know what she puts in it, but he's got a whole sheets of paper of him trying to guess what's in it. But her touch is on several of her recipes, and so you can see the M Duke scrawl everywhere. So anytime you make a suggestion and it's good and he keeps it, he puts a little Z next to it. So, all right, y'all are coming up on a town, and Lee turns to you and he says, Zig, this town coming up, there's we're gonna be in time for the fall. Been using pie a lot lately. What kind of cooking contest should this be? Chili, maybe?
Ooh, for the fall.
Yeah.
So let's see, what's getting harvested in the fall? Well, you do have some pies. Certainly.
Yeah, pies.
You've got some, later harvesting squashes, apples, pears.
Yeah.
Plums.
Could be a jam competition.
Oh, a jam competition would be lovely.
Yep, that would be neat.
See how many we can peck in.
Yeah, okay. So it's going to be a jam competition. And he says, now, normally I compete, but what I'd love to do, I think you're ready for this. I think you should enter. And then I think that'll draw out our thief because you'll be in the competition. You'll be busy. And I think the reason he hasn't gotten into the cart is because
you there, Mr. Quisney.
Nope, Luth, that pun didn't work. Don't want to Mason out on that one. No, that was a stretch and you're fired. And he says, yeah, I think the reason our little thief hasn't gotten to the cart is because you're always guarding it. But what if you were, and the one time that you weren't guarding it recently, and he tried to break in, was when you and I were over at, well, let's just say you were at Mama Duke's, eating one of her weird pies. And he's like, right, so and he starts to digress on, what if it was, and he starts talking about different herbs she might have used in the pie, and he's muttering to himself, and he starts to reach into one of his vest pockets for his book, and his pencil comes out behind the ear, and he goes, no, plan. So it's the one time that the guy tried to break into the cart. So what if we put you into the competition? You think that would draw him out?
Well, it's certainly worth a try.
Well, now, do we let him get into the cart? You'll be fine in the competition, of course. And Lee doesn't compliment you very often. When you're right about something, the closest you get to him being like, this is good, is that he puts it in his book and he puts a Z next to it. That's the closest he really gets. And he just stops grumbling at you. He'll ask for your opinion sometimes, right? But he's never like, there you go, my boy, you did it. So him saying like, you'll be fine in the competition, no question. Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, dude, but with just me guarding the cart, I'm not you, Ziggy. Like, I don't have that great axe, or what do I?
You do have the spoon that's a knife.
I says, yeah, it's just a knife, though.
Knives in the hands of the right user can be quite deadly.
And he just gives you this blank look. Like he's just a cook. He really feels like he's just a cook.
I try and get that knife from him.
He'll let you get it. Like he says some of these spoons are quite dangerous, but he lets you get it. So the way this works is that
What are the dangerous ones? Use those.
and he says, no, they're just failed. Like he rummages around and he goes, I don't even know what this one does. And he holds up one with, it's got sort of scalloped edges. And he's like, but it's too shiny. You see that? And he like turns it around and he's right. It's too shiny. He's like, I don't even know what this one does. And he holds up the spoon knife and he's like, and this one, if you're not careful, you'll cut yourself because it's actually a knife, not a spoon.
Oh, if some of these are dangerous, use them.
But I don't know what they do, so that's why they're dangerous, is they could do something horrible. And I wouldn't even know it.
Okay, do you have any others like the knife spoon? Knifey spoony?
He starts to dig through there, and he says, I don't think so. I don't really try to make spoons that do horrible things. I try to make spoons that do, cooking stuff.
Do you have a spoon that's a peeler?
And he says, spoon's a peeler, and he digs through there, and he goes,
Can peel the skins off of apples?
And he says, well, I mean, why wouldn't you just use a knife? And he pulls a paring knife, short little.
Lee, you have to have something.
He digs through and he digs through and he says, let me think here. And he says, well, now, and he holds up a spoon and and he hands it to you and it's warm. And he says, does that remind you of one of my spoons that boils water?
Yeah.
And he takes it back and he says, I think if I want this to, it'll heat up the metal of anybody that is near me. That's why I don't sell it. Because when you use the water boiling spoon, you have to be thinking, like, make the water hot. And so I'm pretty sure this spoon doesn't feel quite right. So I'm pretty sure that if I have it and I think make the metal heat up, I think it'll heat up metal. But I don't know how to test it. I don't know, Ziggy. I don't want to hurt you. You see how that would hurt. You've got metal all over you.
Hold on. And I wrap my hand in a like sock or whatever or an oven mitt, and I take up another one of the spoons or ladles or whatever he has on the cart, and I hold it out and I just real carefully. Do it, Lee.
And Lee's like, I don't know. I don't know. And so he's holding the spoon, and you see it. Have you ever seen metal on the forge? It turns that like bright cherry red.
Oh yes.
You see the bowl of the spoon turn that color, and the entire ladle turns the exact same color, and just starts it's burning through that oven mitt. Like
drops it, takes off the oven mitt.
It hits the
Lee, it hits
the wood. It hits the wood and it starts to burn through the bottom of the cart. And Lee's like, what have I done? And he throws the spoon down. You notice when he throws the spoon down, you'd expect the spoon to start burning stuff too, but it doesn't. It stays that hot cherry red, but it doesn't burn the counter. But the ladle
transfers all the heat to something else.
Yeah, it melts through the bottom of the cart, and you're both looking down through this ladle-shaped hole. And he looks up at you, and it's still going. It's still hot. And after about 10 minutes, the bowl of the spoon's gonna stop being cherry red again, and it's just that It just feels slightly warm.
He basically created ladle thermite.
Yeah. So the way I've been doing a lot of the spoons is just slapping random spells on them, which is why my friend hates them. And this one just has heat metal on it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So and he just
Yes,
looks up at
Lee,
you in
you hold
horror.
on to that. That is a fantastic spoon for you to hold on to in case anybody threatens you.
But this seems awful. It never stops burning. It'll hurt someone.
Well, you just do that to whatever they're holding and they can drop it. That's on them.
Well, if you think you're the fighter, so if you think that's the right thing to do,
In self-defense only.
okay, all right. So he clearly doesn't want to think about having to self defend, but you guys talk for a while, and you agree. The plan is you're going to enter this jam contest. It'll be very public, so you'll very publicly not be anywhere near the cart, and Lee will set up inside the cart and wait for somebody to break in, and then he'll hold them at spoon point and try and get them to tell him what they want. And he says, if it's one of the spoons, I'll just give it to him.
Oh, this is awesome. Can't wait for this. Can't wait for this jam competition.
Yeah, so you roll into a fairly prosperous looking town. It's actually got a front gate. Um,
Do they
and
have walls to go around the gate?
they're low walls.
They have a gate.
They do. They
Gosh.
it's yeah, this is the kind of town where the walls and the gate are probably more to keep animals out at night than they are to keep brigands out or anything. But yeah, it's made out of stone. It's quite good. The wall, not the gate. And
This is a posh. This is a posh town.
it's got two inns.
Oh.
Yeah. So Lee drives the cart to the larger one, and the innkeeper there waves and clearly knows him. He backs his cart into the yard, tucks it right up against the stable, and he turns to you and he says, "Now we won't do any business in this town. They've already got a tinker." And I actually trained her, so she provides for this town. I only stop here because it's a good resting spot, and I love entering this competition. This year it's jams. He said last year it was lemon tinctures, and I took that quite handily. But I think you can do jams. Now, the trick here is there's going to be people coming from all over the country, and they bring all kinds of jams, apple jams, yam jams, all kinds of jams. Sorry, I just quoted a movie there. All kinds of jams. So now this is going to be up to you, because for it to all work out, Ziggy, you have to come up with the right jam.
Okay.
What kind of jam are you going to make?
What are the local ingredients?
And he says, all right, this town is really well known for pumpkins. They've got, okay, I don't know if this is real in real life, but we're just going to pretend. They're really well known for cinnamon and thyme. I don't know if all of those things all grow in the same place, but that's what I'm going to say.
No, they don't really.
Whatever, I
Well,
don't care.
suppose you could grow thyme any place you could grow cinnamon. It's hot enough.
This is a magical world where I do what I want.
So let's see here. What I'm gonna say is that whatever their local fruits are, like what's their most prized local fruit?
I think their most prized local fruit is a plum. They've got weird plums here where if you get them in just the right season, they've got a sweet tart taste that is magical. Because you never have both. It's the perfect mix of both, but you can't cook it and preserve the flavor.
I want whatever I can cook, whatever I can do of their local. I want something sweet, something
Okay.
ripe and sweet. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix it with an herbaceous, slightly herbaceous flavor from the
Great.
thyme for a little citrusy herbaceousness, but also a clean heat from peppers.
Ooh. All right.
Something that
Yeah.
has different flavor dimensions.
Let's say a couple towns back, Lee picked up some peppers that'll work really well for this. It'll give it the taste of the exotic. Lee tells you, he says, you know, those plums, if you can manage to get those to go sweet when you cook them instead of sour, and he says that the jam around here is all that sour plum. It's delicious. But if you can get those to go sweet, I think that'll do just the trick. I think that'll be the taste you want. And I've got some ideas about that.
Sweet and spicy with a little herbaceousness. That's fantastic.
Jam competition. Plum, sweet, thyme, herbaceous, and pepper spice. Okay. And Lee says, all right, for this to be fair, you're going to have to make this on your own, but you can use anything in the kitchen, and that's quite helpful. And he says, now the competition is in 6 days' time, so you've got time to make, math. You've got time to make 3 batches. So if your first 2 batches fail, you still got time to get a third one out.
Okay. Let's do this.
All right, roll me a d20.
Yeah. What am I adding?
You're gonna add. I'll give you a +3. Each ingredient is a +1, so I'll give you a +3.
I did not do well on the first roll.
What'd you roll?
Total of 7.
It was a total of 7, not a natural 7?
One for every spoon.
Okay, because natural 7s have consequences in my games, so...
It was not a nat 7.
Good to know. We pull out a gem hammer card when there's a nat 7, and things
No!
happen.
I mean, yes!
Last night, Sarah pulled a nat 7, and she turned a bright glowing green, and instead of doing anything I thought they would do to get through this train, they decided that was infectious, and they were going to try and get... Yeah, it was ridiculous, and it's all Gem Hammer's fault. Okay, so with a 7, what I'll say is you didn't get the sweet taste. You got that sour taste. The thyme was a little bit too strong, and you couldn't even taste the peppers. The sour overwhelmed the pepper taste. All right. Now, Lee he looks at it. He says, "This is a good jam. It's got a strong flavor, but I don't think it's a winner. It's not what you were shooting for. Now, have you tried straining the spring water?"
Draining the spring water.
And he says, "Yep." And he was rustling about, and he's like, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" He pulls out the oldest looking strainer in the world, and he says, "Use this." And as soon as you touch it, you realize anything you strain through this is going to be as pure as it was meant to be ever.
Okay, so we're going to distill it, essentially.
Sure. Now, go ahead
let's do that.
Roll me another d20.
Okay. 16.
Okay, this one's good. I want to get a third roll in here, but he tastes it, and it's got the sweet, it's got the herbaceous, it's got the spicy, and he says, "I think this might do, but if it is the one, letting it sit for a little while, we'll let the flavors do a third batch just in case." And he says, this time, why don't you're not allowed this time? Use one of my water boiling spoons. It'll get it up to boil faster.
Okay. All right. What am I still adding the 3?
Yep.
Okay.
No, actually, no. So your last roll would have been a 17 because I meant to have you add a +1 for the strainer. For this one, so it's a +5. So you'll have a +1 for each of the ingredients and a +1 for each of the tools. What did you rolled a 1? Oh my goodness. The jam actually explodes. It's all over the inside of the cart, and it happens as you turn away. Like you're like, this is boiling very strangely. And you turn to Lee to be like, Lee, what is happening? And as you turn your back to it, hot jam it's everywhere. There is more hot jam in the cart than could have possibly been in the pot. And it has a very strange smell. And Lee wipes it off his face and he says, too much time. And but
Perfect.
he had taken your jam out, and he has this little wire basket that he was, so he puts the jam in the baskets and he puts them in the stream so that they'll cool. And so that second batch was safe, and he says, I think the second batch is going to be the one. We'll leave it for another hour or so. The competition's tomorrow. We'll try it on our toast tomorrow morning and we'll know. And make sure tomorrow during the competition you butter your toast and then put the jam on. Trust me.
Okay.
So he checks the you guys check the jam that night as you're making dinner. And he actually uses your first batch of jam in dinner. He makes up a jammy stew. It's really good. That sour taste brings out some of the smoked meat from 2 weeks ago. It's perfect. It's a perfect mix. But he brings in your jam, and you pop one, and he's got these little tiny tasting spoons. And he hands you one, and he gets one. He's like, "All right, let's do this." And you scoop, you put it in your mouth, and for whatever reason, the sitting that it did. The cooling and the sitting, that's the jam. You think that's going to be the one.
Okay.
And he says, you're ready. All right. So you wake up the next morning. Lee actually woke up before you, and he's arranging your jams in a basket. And he's muttering to himself like, bows are too fancy, and this is a good clean cloth, and that's all he needs. It's a nice basket, all right. And he's like picking up the handle, make sure it's not too heavy, and he's standing back and he's looking at it from either side, and he's like, yes. And he pulls out a handkerchief and wipes one of the bottles to make sure it to get a smudge, and he turns one bottle to make sure that like a dark occlusion is behind, and he notices you're awake, and he says, I just wanted it to look its best. Some people only use their eyes, and that color it's a nice deep dark purple color, like a jewel purple color. It's a gorgeous jam.
I love it. I want to make jam like this IRL.
I do too. We actually have a plum tree at the moment. I know we're moving, so I don't know that we'll get plums out of it before we move, but
Boo.
maybe I'll have a plum tree at my new house. Anyway, so it's time. He's gonna send you off to the competition, and he's gonna stay in the cart all by himself.
Nice.
And wait for the thief.
Great. I go to the competition. I put on it. Does he have a Lee Clousset branded apron?
He does. Yes.
Awesome. I gotta rep it.
Yep. So he puts it on you and ties the bow in the back, and he spins you around, and yep, you look good. As you approach the judges table where you check in and drop your sample before you go over and stand and wait. As you approach it, Luth is getting taco vibes from Adventure Zone. As you approach the table, the judges are all the tiniest old women you've ever met, and there are 3 of them, and they each have the brightest eyes you've ever seen. So one's got green eyes, one's got blue eyes, and one's got brown eyes, but you would swear that their eyes are jewels. Like, they are the brightest, most intelligent looking eyes in the entire world. And
well, that's subtle, Luth.
Your fate is in their hands. Yeah, you're the worst. Sorry, I was just imagining every time he does this, I think of creative ways to kill whatever pun bard he makes someday in one of my games. And I just had a neat thought of how I can just be like, oh, cool, you're murdered. So, as you set the down, the first the first lady says, Quasar. Yes. Are you Quasar's boy?
I'm his traveling companion.
I see. I see. Yes. 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 And are you entering his jams?
I'm entering my jams.
Oh. And the three women look at each other like, I see. Quasar has allowed you to use his name while you enter your own work. Why, I never. And all three women are suddenly very interested in what you've got in the basket because you gather that this has never been done before. Quasar would never put his name on someone else's food, ever.
Well, he endorses me.
They exchange looks again, and they say, "Well, let's see what you've got." So you hand over a jar, and they pop it, and they're murmuring to each other, and yes, it's sealed quite nicely. Look at that color, and one of them holds it up to the light, and they all whip out tasting spoons, and they look just like the spoons you and Quasar use. So it's he probably sold them these, and they each take out. They've each got a glass of water, and they each take out a tiny spoonful, and they make eye contact, and they raise the spoon, and they put it in their mouths all at the same time, and they hold them on their tongues, and they move them around their mouths, and they tip their heads back, and they take a deep breath, and then they swallow it, and then they each take a sip of water. They swirl it around their mouth, swallow. They look at each other. They look up at you, and they say, "Well done. Please take your place with the others." And that's all you hear. When when you go to your place, you're in a perfect position. Everybody that's behind the judging table with all their baskets, you can all hear them test each of the jams. So you can hear them say "well done" to more than one person. So it's going to be a close. It's going to be a close thing. You've got a very bubbly little lady to your right. She's very curvy. She's got very stylish brown curls, and she's wearing a neat blue dress with a blue apron over it. Her basket's got a blue bow on it. It looks like she's made some sort of blueberry jam. She's very blue themed. And she turns to you and she's like, "I'm just ever so excited. What kind of jam did you make? That's such a pretty color."
Well, I say to her that, I decided to go with a local sweet fruit with the plums that are a little tricky to cook, and we're going to add a couple of layers of flavor by giving it a sort of herbaceous citrus due to the thyme that I used, just a smidge, because we don't want to make it too herbaceous, but also adding a dimensionality of spice using pepper that Lee Quasay and I picked up a few towns back.
And she says, "Well, I'll say, I've never been able to get the plums around here go sweet. You'll have to tell me how you did that."
It was a stroke of luck, frankly.
And she says, "I believe that, although if you're working with Lee, I'm sure he had something to do with it." And she says, "My goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm sure this is talent of your own. He'd never let you stand in for him if you didn't have talent. I'm so sorry." She gets very flustered. She didn't
Oh,
mean... She seemed...
that's quite gracious of you.
She didn't mean to say that, like, this wasn't your jam, of course.
It's quite gracious. Thank you.
The guy next to you is older, and he looks like he's gonna die on the spot. He's so nervous. He's fidgeting, and he keeps turning his basket back and forth and, like, muttering, and he's, like, straightening his tie, and it's not really that tight, but he keeps tugging on it like it is, and he keeps smoothing his hair back, and of course, the more he smooths it, the more it stands up, and he's, twisting, and he keeps saying things like, "I used too much salt, didn't I? I used too much salt. And he's freaking out.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh, that, sir. That whatever happens, and there will always be next year's competition, right?
And he looks at you and he's wiping his forehead with a very damp handkerchief and he's just sweating buckets and he's like, and he doesn't really respond. He just keeps muttering about salt. At this point, the judges have gotten up, everybody's entered, and they start to make their way down the table. And it sounds like they're going to give their judgments of each jam as they work their way down the table. And there's about 15 people here, and you're smack dab in the middle. So you hear them break down each jam ingredients. So the first one they say, you've clearly used blackberries. And the woman there says yes, and the next woman says, it seems like you have supplemented this with a honey that is not from around here. And the woman says yes, it's from my hometown. It's like great. And then the next woman says, it looks like you used water from boiling potatoes. And the woman says yes, and they're like yes, you didn't quite pull that off. We're not sure about the potato water, but we see what you did there. It made it quite. Got it the consistency, and a good try though. And they tasted
water.
What?
But did you say potato water?
I did, and Dr. B, I am not a cook of any kind, so you're gonna hear some real weird jam descriptions.
That is a unique term that I have never heard before.
Oh, you've never heard that? So
potato water?
When you boil potatoes, you're supposed to take the water and not throw it away. You're supposed to use it in the rest of your recipe.
Oh, because of all the starch. Yeah. No, the leftover pasta water, we do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I've just never heard it described as potato water.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I grew up with that. Sorry. Yeah, potato water. Yeah, that's a new. I mean, it's
cool. I learned something new.
In a Zinlia term. It's very well known in this world. Anyway, so when the judges tasted the jam at the table, they used those little spoons. But as they're going down the line, they're tasting them again on a piece of bread. And Lee had given you one of his baked loaves and some of the butter that you and he made together. And remember, he told you to butter the bread. And so as they're working their way down the line, the two people that are on deck sort of start prepping theirs, and they gave you these instructions when they sent you to your table. So she's getting close. They're at the lady with the blueberries, and they're describing hers. It sounds like she has a very plain, blueberries. She used local cane sugar and
nice
and blueberries, and that's it. That she just used the two ingredients, and the three judges murmur to themselves, and it's very unusual. It's quite plain. It's quite good. But they expected something with a little more, something a little more. So she seems a little disappointed. But it is quite good, they say. So they've moved to yours, and they each pick up a small piece of bread with the jam on it. And the first judge takes a bite, and she says, "Is this Crusoe's bread?"
It is.
Yes, it's got that good nutty taste, but it doesn't overwhelm the jam. Now, it seems that you've used plums here. These are local plums. It's unusual to have them be sweet after being cooked.
This is a local plum, yes, and it took a few tries, but one of which was a little bit sticky and disastrous, but I somehow managed to cook it in such a way to retain the sweetness that complements the heat of local pepper that I picked up that was farm to table.
And she says, no, we have not quite delivered our judgment, so we... Oh. Not quite yet.
Very enthusiastic.
Yes, and she says, the middle lady says that. She's like, oh, he's quite... And the third judge says, I had picked out the peppers, so I will talk about that. Now, these are not local peppers. They've got a heat to them that I'm not quite familiar with, but it is quite the compliment to the sweet. I assume that was your intent.
Yes.
And she says, that was quite well done. There's a very good balance there. And the first judge says, yes, to get the sweet, did you strain the water that you used?
We did try that one time, yes.
And she says, oh, that might do it. And they sort of murmur to themselves. And there's, yes, okay. And the middle lady was like, oh, and me, you used thyme, didn't you?
I did.
And she's like, yes, yes, it's very subtle. It's the perfect twist. It ties the whole thing together. I think if you didn't use the thyme, then the sweet and the spicy just wouldn't quite go together. It needs that bridge, but it's quite good. It's a very round flavor. She's very excited about it. So you've seen the first lady be enthusiastic about one other jam. You've seen the third judge be enthusiastic about two other jams. This is the first jam you've seen all three of them be enthusiastic about. They keep moving down. They keep moving down the line, and the guy next to them, they taste it and they look at each other, and the middle one just says, "Did you use salt?" And he turns absolutely white, and he gives one short, jerky nod, and she says, "Better luck next time, Tom." And they move on, and they seem very sympathetic, like they're very nice about it, but they just move on.
Aww.
And he just stares straight ahead, like his worst fears have come true, and he's just frozen. So they move down the line. None of the jams are inedible, but as you watch them, yours is the only one that they were the most enthusiastic about. So they step away, they confer, they all nod very quickly. They come back to you and they say, "Ziggy, you are the clear winner. We, as part of the agreement for the competition, you have to give us your recipe." They're all very insistent on it.
Okay.
So come with us, dear. And they really want you to give them your recipe. And so there's lots of cheering, and Lee has told you to make sure that you give them the jam, and that you should keep one jar, but like the polite thing to do if you win is to give them the basket of jam.
Well, we'll give them the whole basket of jam. We're gonna, of course.
Yeah, and so as you follow them
here.
As you follow them back to the table, you hear a scream. Roll me a perception check.
Okay. Let's see. Fire, so it's decent. Not that decent. 12.
It sounds like it's coming from Lee's cart.
Okay.
Now,
well, it's going back.
The cart is in the inn yard, and the judging was done in the inn's quite expansive front room. So to get there, you can either go out the front door and around the building to get back towards the stable, or you can shove your way through the kitchen because it comes out on the other side of the stable.
Okay, well, I'm actually going to try and hop over the table and just run off the stage and get to where the screaming is coming from, because I gotta help out Lee.
Yeah, are you gonna go through the kitchen or through the front door?
Ooh, through the front door seems like the more direct path.
Okay, so you go around the front door. You gotta shove past some people. Where's your axe at this moment? Would you have taken this to the competition, do you think? Oh yeah, for sure. Got it. Just checking. So you whip around the side of the yard. The yard is completely empty, which is strange to you because the inn is so full at the moment. You'll have to go around the edge of the cart, and you hear that scream again. That's definitely Lee.
Okay, pull the axe out and start go running.
All right, so you get around the end of this cart, and what you see is a small dark man. He's covered from head to toe in black, so you can barely even see his eyes, and he's got that spoon to Lee's neck, and it's glowing.
Which spoon?
It's glowing cherry red. And he says, "If you come any closer, I'll use this on him."
What are you planning on doing with it, man?
This man is coming with me.
That can't happen.
And he says he's either coming with me or he's dying right now.
How do you think that spoon works?
And the guy looks at you like, why are we talking about spoons? And he just makes an aggressive gesture at Lee, and Lee screams again. Lee is clearly terrified. Like he does not know what to do. Now, you notice he doesn't have any metal on him. Like, he never does, right? Like, he doesn't walk around with kitchen implements or anything.
Right. But he screams.
Well, so Lee's not a fighter.
He's scared.
He's
Okay,
scared
no,
to
he's
death.
scared. He's
So
definitely scared.
whenever
Okay.
the guy makes a sharp movement, he screams. He's
Okay.
he's not thinking clearly at this point. So you're right.
All
That
right.
spoon won't do anything to Lee, but
So I take a step closer to the guy holding the spoon near him.
and the guy's like, don't get out of my way.
I won't get out of your way.
And he's like, then I'll have to do it. And he jams the spoon into Lee's neck. And Lee's scrabbling at it, and the guy like holds it there and he starts to try and drag Lee around you.
Hey, Lee. Lee.
And Lee's like, help me, Ziggy, help me, I'm dying.
How's that spoon feel?
And he's like, well, huh. And the guy realizes in that moment.
My hope is that the perplexity that is about to occur is enough for me to tell Lee to duck while I charge.
Okay. Lee is going to pause and look at you, and you're going to realize he's like, oh, right, this isn't going to hurt me. And as you reach for your weapon, he throws himself at the ground.
I had my weapon.
Oh, you have it out.
out.
As you start to move, the minute you start to move towards him, he drops to the ground, and it's just the one move this guy didn't expect, right? Like, and as Lee gets quiet and realizes the spoon's not doing anything, that's about the time the guy realizes the spoon's not doing anything, and he starts to turn it towards you.
Huh. Well, and that's the point where I throw my axe.
All right. Go ahead and roll me a d20 to hit.
Okay. All right. Come on, d20 to hit. Well, that's a little bit better than what I did earlier.
What you got?
Well, what am I rolling, dex, or am I rolling strength when I throw?
I don't think he's far enough away for you to. I think you're. Well, if you want to throw it, I'll have you. The great axe is pretty heavy. I'll have you use strength.
Okay. Well, then that's a 18.
Okay, so that definitely hits. Where do you want that to land? Do you want it to chunk into his chest or what?
Center mass.
Got
Biggest
it.
target.
Okay, roll me a d12. What'd you get?
God bless the singing dice.
Damn. That's not
so that's
okay.
A 14 damage.
So, is your great axe double bladed?
Oh yeah.
So that hits him as it starts to spin through the air. The metal starts to heat up on it, and it starts to glow a red. And so,
sorry, dude.
You as that leaves your hand, to reflect a d12, to reflect a 12 damage on this. As that leaves your hand, you know that this is going to sink about halfway through this guy because it left your hand perfectly. However, it goes all the way up to the haft. It is just like a hot knife through butter. And he looks up at you, and he's holding on to, and his hands are burning as well. And he just gurgles and falls over. And he is straight up dead. That did way more damage than you thought it would.
Yeah. My hot axe is still pretty hot, right?
Yeah, it's like it's turning the cobblestones around it black, and the guy's actually burning. Like his body is starting to burn.
You know what? I cast Ray of Frost.
Yay. So everything cools down really quickly. There's weird snaps and crackles and pops. It gets rid of the smell pretty fast, and you're
incidentally, Ziggy's really good at ice creams and gazpacho because of Ray of Frost.
Perfect. Love that. And Lee knows it and loves it as well. Like he's never had ice cream like the ice cream you make. I don't know how to spell gazpacho. So the guy is super dead, and Lee gets up to on his knees, and he looks at you, and he looks at the guy who's dead, and he looks like he's gonna throw up, and then he whips around and he says, "Did you win?
Yes.
You won!
We have bigger concerns here.
Oh yes, right. Oh, but you won. I'm so proud of you. Yes. Do you know who this guy is?"
No.
And he's like, "I don't know who he is either, but you know, he really wanted that drawer of spoons."
I keep telling you, they're valuable.
"I don't understand why you think that." And
I don't understand why you don't.
so you guys yell at each other for a minute. This town is big enough to have two sort of constable dudes. They come up, they look at what happened. Lee explains, and they say, "Oh yeah," they take the body away. Nobody's in trouble here.
Can I have my axe?
Yeah, they give you the axe. They're like, "Strange how deep that went through him, though."
I was inspired to help my friend.
One of the guys like does the arm squeeze thing, like, yes, quite muscles, good job, and they take the body away. The judges flutter over, and that you didn't give us the recipe, and Lee looks at you very accusatorily, and he says, "You didn't give them your recipe. You said you won."
Screaming! I am happy to give you all the recipe, but I had to save a life.
Inexcusable. You go with them right now. Ladies, I will bring... he's gonna bring a special herb tincture that they particularly love, and it takes a while to make, so he has to get the herbs here and make it, and he always saves some, so he says, "I'll bring that right over. I'll bring an extra bottle just for the confusion that was clearly here." So he rushes you. He tells you to go away with the ladies. You go back into the inn with them while he gets the tincture. He comes in and he looks very pale, and he sort of stumbles over to the table and he shoves the tincture at the ladies, and he looks very meaningfully at you like, "I need to talk to you."
I need to talk to you.
Come over here. So you guys kind of sidle over to the side of the room, and he says, Ziggy, the spoons, they're gone."
What?
"They're gone."
Who took the spoons?
"I don't know, but the whole drawer. Somebody took the entire, the drawer even. They're gone."
Well, are we going to get the constables on this?
I don't know, Ziggy. I don't know what to tell them.
You tell them there's a collection of magic spoons that's been stolen.
Oh,
many
I can't
of which
do that.
Why not?
I can't do that, Ziggy. These guys have been following me for a while. There has to be something more to this. You have to help me. And
okay, well, we're gonna...
I think...
Let's get the cops!
I think that's where we're gonna leave it.
No!
So you and Lee get the useless constables involved. They have no idea what to do with you, and you are forced to just continue on with your journey. Nobody follows you anymore. You make it all the way to a town called Woodcliff. It is a town that is about a mile up on the side of a cliff. It looks like a plateau sort of sticks out. It's big enough to put a town on. To get there, you have to ride in this weird metal and wood contraption that it's like a ball, and it raises up in the air. When you get up there, somebody has started building an inn because they need one. But Lee was very shaken by that theft, and he needs a rest, and they need an innkeeper. You've traveled with Ziggy for half the year, you've traveled with Lee for half the year. Lee needs to settle down, and this place needs a brewer to bring them from all around. So if you're amenable, I'll say that you're the original brewmaster for Woodcliff, which will fit nicely into the Woodcliff because it had brewery equipment that was just top-notch, magical in nature, and still exists to this day and Bill's eats and sleeps which he changed the name from very slightly. Maybe we call it Ziggy's Sips and Sits originally.
I was gonna call it Barbarian Brewery.
That works too. Um, and you worked with one of Lee's old adventurers, a guy by the name of Archie, who was very strange in the end.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, that's you have contributed heavily to the lore of Azinlia. Thank you, Dr. E. I really like Ziggy. Ziggy's really fun.
And he makes an IPA called Ziggy Stardust.
Oh, good God. Okay. Ziggy Stardust. Okay. Hey, what did you name the place?
Barbarian Brewery.
Barbarian Brewery. Got it.
And
All
I
right.
know, Luke, you've been waiting for the Ziggy Stardust pun.
You guys are the worst. All right, so the magic item I'm going to give you is the heat metal spoon. So it's literally just a spoon. It looks like it's made out of slag iron. It's not metal you'd use on a spoon normally. And like I said, if you hold it, it's pleasantly warm. If you point it at something and want it to heat up the metal, the bowl turns a cherry red. It doesn't get too hot for you to hold. And
That's awesome.
if you touched the bowl, it would not harm you at all. Just the metal. And the metal will be heated for however long the heat metal spell is. You are perfectly allowed to use this in your games if you'd like. It's going to show up in a Zinli at some point because I'm
Nice.
setting your story way back in the past. So I can do something interesting with this. It's not currently in the world at the moment. And yeah, you have to ask your GM if you can use this though, because it is a made-up magical item. Doesn't belong in D&D Beyond, or it's not Wizards of the Coast endorsed. So if your GM's like, "What the shit is this?" Please do not be like, "Well, Shauna said I could use it, so I do not want angry GMs coming after me for these magic items."
Oh, I love this. I need Shona's magic spoon drawer. That's gonna make it into my campaign.
Yeah. Okay. I can share that spreadsheet with you. It's kind of ridiculous.
Oh, I was just gonna. What I was thinking about doing was just rolling for the grog of substantial whimsy.
I have no idea what that is. What is this?
What? It's
Yeah.
an old internet thing. It's kind of like the deck of many things, but less harmless. I mean, more harmless, generally speaking. And there's a lot of meta, almost synesthetic. Yeah, kind of a synesthesia vibe to a lot of the effects, but it's you roll 3d10s on a table of 1,000.
Okay.
Hold on, let me look one up. Grog of Substantial Whimsy, 5th edition. There we go. It's a 3.5 is where I find it for D&D wiki, but let's roll 3d10. Let's see what we got going on here.
Do
What
you
kind of
have
effects?
enough D10?
Oh yeah, in front of me, absolutely.
I've got 12.
All
Within
right, so
easy
let's say
reach.
287. Let's go to 287. When you drink the grog of substantial whimsy, your PC gains a prehensile tongue that can extend out 5 feet.
Gross.
Okay, let's go with a different one.
Ick.
534. Whenever the PC witnesses a spell being cast, they are compelled to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, I'm gonna have to look up that. That's fantastic.
There's one that I absolutely loved that your character actually sees physical numbers of their own hit points going out of you as you take damage.
I have a spoon that I'm calling I'm calling the meta spoon. And people, whenever you say it's the meta spoon, they're going to be like, metal spoon, yeah. And you're like, no, it's the meta spoon. And they're like, yeah, metal spoon, yeah. But when you hold it, you get the sense that there's a towering figure that's narrating your life and occasionally makes decisions about what you do as if you have no control over anything.
I'm going to stop there. He didn't.
All right. Well, so the way this kind of works is I'm throwing in the wrap-up ticket to Woodcliff because I like using that lore. Now, Ziggy may show up in some of my games in the future, but I will stay true to the character. It's more likely that he'll be referred to as a historical figure at some point. And the heat metal spoon will show up again because I've got plans for that one. Thank you.
Can I throw in a little history for you?
Yeah.
I would like to think that Ziggy reluctantly saved the entire countryside through heroic acts. Like a climactic one-on-one battle with the general of an invading horde.
Okay.
And then he immediately went back to his brewery.
And all he wanted to be known for was the Ziggy Stardust beer, IPA.
Yeah, that was his IPA that he perfected, Ziggy's Stardust.
And he did perfect it. That recipe's been handed down. Nobody changes it.
Yes.
It's perfect. Anybody that tries to change it gets the worst tasting beer in the world.
He has a red ale called Major Tom, named after a local folk hero.
You're the worst.
And a very complex barley wine that he calls the Goblin King.
Okay. Why is it complex?
Barley wine, they tend to be.
Oh,
but it's almost labyrinthine in its taste.
Oh my god. Okay. Nope, that's gross. Luth said Goblin King needs to be served in a codpiece stein. That's super gross. He also said, but it's D&D. Is it Majort? Oh no, Majort's the worst. 3D model incoming?
Majort?
Have you ever had Malort?
Malort! Yes, I've got a bottle of it here.
Why? To torture people?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I need one. Because I've lived in Chicago, so I obviously need to add one to my collection. Decided I need
I need to go get more Malort.
What do you use it for?
To torture people.
How many people are you torturing that you need another bottle?
Yes.
Okay, so stream. We're gonna leave it there. Dr. B tortures people with Malort. We've got Ziggy. We've introduced the guy that made all the spoons. That's where that lore comes from. I think we had a very interesting day today. Now, Dr. B, if you would like to share, where can people find you for the rest of the week?
Well, you can always find me on Twitter at the Dr. B. That's TheeDoctor, B as in boy. But more importantly, go follow Take This Org on both Twitter and Facebook.
I think we've got that in. Yeah. So I just put a link in the chat. TakeThis.org is the second one in there. Yeah, definitely follow them. Yeah, I like them. Definitely follow them. They often put out resources that I find absolutely fascinating to use as a civilian. I always like to remind people, do not do therapy on your friends. Don't do it. For me, you can find me on Tuesday with Treasure Tuesday. I think we'll be back this week, and then we'll do Broken Bay next week, and I think I've got somebody for that Oh, no Broken Bane this week, folks. I've got a panel instead. I'm in a couple panels, but I cannot remember when they are, so go to gametogrow.org, which is also in the chat, and look at the very front page has a banner. Just click on it, and that's the whole schedule, and my name's somewhere in there, but I'm doing a session 01, and I'm doing one on not being a therapist when I run D&D, so it's topical. Anyway, all right, stream, we're going to say goodbye. I hope everybody has a good rest of your day. Dr. B, if you want to hang out and we can chat about the game afterward, we can do that offline. Stream, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye, stream.